Hi, my name is Chad. I'm one of the educators with Hema-Tec. I'm going to go over the layout, the setup, and the function of the Nipro machine. This is the Nipro SureDial DX hemodialysis machine. I'll start with the screen. It tilts, which makes it easy for moving around and seeing all around it. It also swivels, so if you're in a room that's tight quarters, you can still see your information regardless of where you're positioned yourself. The transducer ports, arterial and the venous. This is the heparin pump setup. These are line holders for holding the lines when we're priming them so that you don't have to worry about them falling and hitting the floor. The blood pump. There's an internal battery, a backup battery, that runs when it's new for a half an hour. So if the machine gets unplugged or the power goes out, that the blood pump will continue to spin so you don't have to worry about it clotting. But in the highly unlikely event that that actually runs out, then there is an arm on it that you can hand crank the blood pump. The air detector and blood detector. Waste port. The wands, the bicarb and acid wands. We don't use typically the bicarb wand. We have a bicartridge that we use. I'll show you in a minute. This is the acid wand, which has the suction tube is connected to the rest of the tubing, so you don't have to worry about losing it. There's a recessed platform on the bottom for holding which is nice for holding your acid jugs and whatever else you want to put on there, not worry about it rolling off on the floor. It has nice big caster wheels with easy to use brakes. On the left side of the machine, you have the blood pressure tubing holder. Behind this door is the ultra filter. There's a convenience tray on top, swivels out to the front for you to use, and then swivels back out of the way. On the back of the machine, there's a breaker. When it's turned on, it will charge the internal battery. There's a handle for pushing the machine. It's designed to push in the front to back direction, and because it's longer front to back, it's nearly impossible to tip over. You have these tubing straps, holders, that make it super convenient for keeping the tubing organized. Your bleach and acid are attached by a strap at the bottom so that you never have to go and find your bleach and acid when you need to use it. On the right side of the machine, we have the IV pole. Slides up and down easily. It's very secure. The dial state connectors, they're spring loaded for holding onto the ports. The dialysate sample port, we use a slip tip syringe. Just place it into the port, pull out your sample, put it into a cup, and we check the dialysate for pH, so we have pH check strips and chlorine-chloramine check strips. The bicarb holder, arms pull out, and you would put the bicarbonate cartridge in there. Let's prepare the dialysis machine for treatment. Supplies that you're going to need are your bicarb, your blood lines, your acid, your dialyzer, and your saline. So the first thing you want to do is press and hold the power button for about 3 seconds. You'll see the power light come on. It takes about 40 seconds for it to complete the rest of the boot up sequence. In the meantime, you can connect your acid and your bicarb. Your bicarb, take off the caps, shake it, make sure you don't see any bicarb coming out, which would indicate it's broken and you should get a new one. Open the holders. Take the acid wand out, close the cover, put it in your acid jug. The startup screen comes up. You'll see treatment mode and cleaning mode. You want to press the treatment mode. You'll hear it chime. It immediately starts doing the startup test. During the startup test, you want to wait till the progress gets to at least 1% before you start stringing the lines, because one of the first things the machine does is it calibrates the transducers, and if you plug something into them too quickly, it won't calibrate them correctly. It could give you TMP errors later on during the treatment. The machine self-tests very quickly. I've never beat it, stringing the lines and being done before the self-test is done, so that's not something that's really an issue. So the blood lines come arterial and venous. We'll do the arterial side first. So you have your blood pump segment, and then you just have you have two sides to your lines. One end goes to the dialyzer, and the other end goes to the saline bag. So we'll start by putting the blood pump segment into the blood pump. There's some feet down here at the bottom, and then there's a little finger at the top. So put the feet in the bottom channel and put the finger in this top channel, and when you push it in, the machine will chime and you'll hear it click. And then just close the door. So the line that is on the bottom goes to the dialyzer. So we'll put it into the little tube holders here, just to help keep everything organized. And when you take off the paper line organizer tapes, just make sure that the saline line is connected to it, that it doesn't drop and hit the floor. So just take that off and hang up by the saline bag. And then we can connect our dialyzer end. So take your dialyzer cap off the top and move it to the side. And flip the dialyzer over. And then this side, the one that goes to the saline bag, you just have your transducer that plugs into the transducer port. So the transducer cover goes into the transducer port, leave the clamp open, and then we'll put the tubing into the line holders here and leave the saline tee just to the right of that. That's where it's most accessible. And then we'll plug in our saline. So clamp your saline line, spike your bag, connect the two lines together. And then now we'll connect the venous side. So take the venous chamber and put it into the venous chamber holder down from the top, just slides right in. And then we just have two ends here that we have to work with. One of them, the one end is the dialyzer end. The other end, it goes into the waste port. So we'll connect our dialyzer first. Take the cap off the dialyzer and put it on the side port. And then we'll put the waste line into the waste port. Plug in your venous chamber transducer cover into the transducer. Make sure the clamp is open. And then we need to feed the venous blood line into the air detector. So you just open the door, put this in the channel, and then close the door. So that's the startup test, so that's all complete. So as soon as I'm done stringing the machine and put it in recirculation, you can start the treatment. So the next thing that we're gonna do before we prime the lines is we just have to clamp the accessory lines, which there's only 4 of them. 1, so it's the one on the saline lines, there's 1. 2 is the venous chamber line, the venous chamber pigtail. 3 is your saline tee, right there. And then 4 is the heparin line. Now we're ready to do the priming. So to prime it, you just open your saline line, and then you press the priming button, and then there's a blood flow button that you tap. Right now it's blue and says off, and when I tap it, it turns green and says on. And then the blood pump segment will feed into the blood pump automatically. And the next thing it does before it actually starts feeding saline through the system is it's doing pressure testing of the circuit to make sure that you connected everything securely. None of the caps are open. Nothing is clamped that shouldn't be clamped. So the first thing it does is a negative pressure test, and you can watch the venous pressure. First it shows a negative because it pulls a negative pressure through the waistline port. And then it pushes a positive pressure, so then it goes to 0, and then it goes up to between 99 and 100. So if you just sat here and watched the pressure go up to say 99 or 100, it will almost always go into the priming sequence. If it doesn't, which is one of the alarms that you occasionally get, it'll give you a blood circuit connection alarm, which just tells you that something that you have connected together isn't connected securely, so just go through your connections and check everything. So the blood pump segment starts. Now it's priming the circuit with saline because the pressure test was okay. we have the machine set to prime with 500 milliliters. So that's what it shows here. It says priming volume 500, and it has the rate is set at 150, and it depends on what dialyzers you use, because if you're using the Fresenius dialyzers, we'll have the rate set at 150. If you're using the Nipro dialyzers, we'll have it set at 100. And then it tracks the priming volume, so this will count up to 500, and it gives you a progress percent. So when this reaches 500, that means that it's primed 500, and the saline goes out the waste port. So you don't need a priming bucket or anything else to catch the prime that goes through it. The bi-cartridge is good for 24 hours or until it runs empty. So it usually lasts for at least 6 hours, depending on what you're running your bicarb at and your dialysate flow. And then the acid jugs, those are for treatment. So once you're done with one treatment, you need to dispose of it and then get your new acid jugs. So what I would normally be doing is maybe doing a patient assessment, getting the vital signs, doing some documentation. You could check the RO, the water. We check the RO for chloramines. When we put the machine in recirculation, that's when we'll check the dialysate for pH and for the chloramines. So it's saying verify the appropriate sodium and bicarb level specific for the patient treatment and confirm pH independently. So we're gonna press OK, and then we're gonna check the pH, like I was saying, of the dialysate. You don't need an independent conductivity meter, because this machine does an independent conductivity test. It just doesn't tell you. It does it during the startup test, right at the beginning of the startup test. So if this does the startup test and it does an alarm, then you can safely assume that it completed the independent conductivity. It does give you a time too that it's going to take to do the priming. So it says there's 30 seconds left. I think it started at like 3 minutes or something. So it chimed to let me know that there's something down here to read, so it tells me that I can start the recirculation. So to put it into recirculation, we need to reconfigure the lines and hook up the dialysate connectors. What we're going to do is we're just going to take the saline line and we're going to connect it to the saline tee, and then we're going to marry the venous end and the arterial end of the blood lines together, and then I'll connect the dialysate connectors. So I'm going to take off the cap for the saline tee and then clamp my arterial blood line, clamp the saline line, disconnect it, and then connect it to saline T and open your clamps. Clamp your venous blood line, disconnect it from this connector, put them together, open your clamps, and you can put it somewhere. I usually just hang it up on the IV pole, and then remove your waistline segment. And this is disposable, you just throw this away. Close your waist port. And now we'll hook up our dialysate connectors. So flip the dialyzer so the red end is up. Connect the arterial side. Connect the venous end. And once you've done all of that, you just press OK, and then press the recirculation button. And just to be extra sure, push the recirculation start. So now the blood pump starts again, and it's going to start filling the dialyzer with dialysate. So take it out of the holder, and you want to this is where the air is going to come out of the arterial end. So just flip the dialyzer a little bit so that you see all the air come out. And then once you get the air out on the outside of the fibers, and then you can flip it over to get the rest of the air out from the inside of the fibers. And at this point, we're almost ready to start the treatment. The only other things that you would want to do is you want to set your venous chamber level. So this self-levels, but it depends on where you have the drain line. The higher up you have the drain line, the higher up this level is, because it goes by gravity partially. So this level is a little bit high, so I'll move it down with my level buttons. There's a line on the chamber that I can see. You probably can't see it, but That's where you move the level to. And then on here, if you just loosen the transducer cover, it'll move the saline, which is here. You want to move it up to about halfway up the transducer line. So that's ready. So if I had the settings all set, I could start the treatment now. He would just press the stop button, and then they'll ask if you want to start the treatment. Before we start a treatment, let's take a closer look at the screen and enter some typical settings. So this part here is the blood circuit section. You can see that the blood circuit button is green. The priming button is green. When the buttons are green, that means you're inside of a menu. So if I tap the blood circuit button and turn it blue, you can see it turned off the blood circuit section of the screen. That's the main screen. The same with the priming section of the screen. If I tap it, and it goes back to the main screen. So on the main screen is where you can set the treatment time, the UF goal, the sodium, and the bicarb. So we'll do 3 hours. These are plus minus buttons. So move it down to 3 and then push enter. For the UF goal, maybe we'll do 2 liters. Push enter, and then sodium and bicarb. 137.35 is pretty typical here in Michigan, but here I'll just show you. We'll move it, so we'll make this 138, and how about 36? And then you have the dialysate menu and the UF menu buttons down here. So this is where if we push the dialysate menu, it turns green, so you're inside the dialysate menu screen. This is where you can set your acid, so whatever the acid is going to be. So let's say that we're going to do 2K 2.5 calcium. So these are side scroll buttons, so it's on 3K 2.5 right now. So if we go this way, and you'll see that changes, the calcium does. So keep moving until it says 2K 2.5. Then once it does, tap it again and it'll turn white, and that saves your settings. You could set the temperature. We'll just put it down to 36. Push enter. And then we'll push the dialysate button again to go back to the main screen. So the only other things that you could set would be the blood flow rate, which is here, but this has a default of when you start the treatment, this goes to 200. So whatever it's at right now, you could set it to anything, but it's still going to go to 200. You have to adjust it from there when you start the treatment. And then on the dialysate menu, the same with the dialysate flow, it defaults to 100 when you're setting it up, which is also a benefit because then it uses less dialysate, but it is at 100. And then when we start the treatment, it defaults to 600. So if your dialysate flow order is anything other than 600, you have to change it. Remember to change it after you start the treatment. You can set your blood pressure timing. Press the function button, turn it green. Press the BPM for blood pressure management. And then on the blood pressure screen, there's some alarm parameters here, but those are preset, so you can't change those. And then here's where you can set your blood pressure timing. So this goes by clock time, and it's side scroll. So this would be 5 minutes by the clock. So it would be at the top of the hour, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. So if you wanted to leave it on 15, then that's where you would leave it. And it would go by the quarter hours, and then just close this menu. And you can push the function button and it goes back to the main screen. After the machine settings are entered, you're ready to start the treatment. So in order to start the treatment, you need to stop the blood pump. So press the red stop button, and then you'll get the patient connect, or maybe you made a mistake and you want to go back into recirculation for whatever reason. So if you just push recirculation continue, you're back into recirculation. So stop the blood pump, and then when I push patient connect, it tells you to please connect the arterial and the venous line to the patient. So you would connect the patient to the blood lines. You would press OK, and it would start pulling the blood into the circuit. Once the blood is concentrated enough in the air detector blood detector right here, then it will give you another question. It'll ask you if the blood lines are connected. When blood has been detected in the blood and air detector, you'll get this question, are the arterial and venous lines connected? And you would press OK. It does a blood pressure automatically if you have your blood pressure timing set. The blood flow rate goes to 200, and then the dialysate flow rate on the dialysate menu, that goes to 600. So this is where you would have to reset the dialysate flow rate and the blood flow rate. And then you're off and running with your treatment. some other settings and functions that make the Nipro machine nice to work with. The remove all button. So if the lines clot, after you verify that they've clotted and you want to continue the treatment, then you would push the remove all button and it'll ask you, would you like to remove the lines? And if I press OK, it'll stop the blood pump and it'll eject the blood pump segment and it'll direct you to restring the lines. And when you restart the treatment, it'll recall all of your treatment settings, your UF that you remove, the time, everything's recalled and you would start right back up from where you left off. Another nice thing is with the arterial and venous pressure, if you are having, say for instance, arterial pressure that keeps bottoming out, say at the low end, if you tap where it says ART right here, it'll bring up the parameters and you can actually widen the parameters pretty simply. Say that we wanted to have the low range down further into the negative. If you tap the low range here, it'll then let you adjust it. So if I make it more negative, just to simulate that maybe it's having a big negative pressure, and then you push enter, watch the parameter range change. See the parameter range changes? And then now when the negative pressure gets more negative, it won't alarm. Another nice function is that the compliance window for the machine being unused and then needing to be disinfected is longer than some of the other machines. This one is 3 days as opposed to 2 days. So if this machine were to sit idle for 72 hours or 3 days, then you would have to disinfect it, which is it's a little bit of a procedure. So we actually have a button that we programmed that's just a one push button, and it'll go through the whole disinfect procedure just to simplify it for you. And finally, there's a reinfusion button if you need to end the treatment early for whatever reason. So if I push the reinfusion button, it asks you if you want to stop the treatment. So I'm going to push yes. And then it automatically comes up with the reinfusion volume. We have them set to 300 and the reinfusion rate will be 200. So after I reconfigure the blood lines, connect the arterial line to the saline T, and then you press OK, you'll see it counts up to the 300 that's set for the reinfusion volume for the saline, and you can see the rate is 200. Once the reinfusion volume is reached, you'll get this message, and it'll ask you if you want to remove the lines or continue the reinfusion. If you check the blood pressure and you find that it's low and you want to give more saline, you can push the reinfusion continue button. It'll give 100 milliliter increments of saline every time that you push the button. And then once you're ready to remove the lines, push the remove lines button, and it'll ask you to confirm that you actually want to remove the lines. And when I tap the button again, it'll eject the blood pump segment. And then you can remove all the lines, put the dial sate connectors back, and finish up your treatment. After you remove the blood lines and you put the dial sate connectors back into the ports on the machine, and you remove the bi-cartridge from the holder and put the acid wand back into the machine, you are presented with the cleaning screen, which shows the different functions for cleaning. Whichever one is highlighted green is the one that you've selected. So normally at the end of your day, you're going to do the heat disinfect with citric acid, and the numbers show how long they take. So this one takes 29 minutes. If you were going to do the bleach, so this button, that would take 38 minutes. There's the program 1 is for if the machine is out of the 72-hour compliance window, and we've programmed it to do these 3 functions, which is what's required when the machine's out of that compliance window. So typically you're just going to do this one at the end of your treatment day, and you will push the start button and auto off, so it'll turn off automatically when it's done. I hope you found this video helpful. I think you would find that most of us here at Hema-Tec have taken quite a liking to this machine, and if given the opportunity to switch back to the previous machine or even a different machine, that everyone would enthusiastically request to stay with the Nipro.